Alright guys, so what we're going to be talking about today is how do we write linear equations from graphs. Now this is the second part, or one of the parts here that we didn't go over yet on your graphic organizer, and this is what we're going to be talking about today, like I already said. Real quick, just a couple reminders, alright? Couple reminders is that we always need two parts to write a linear equation. One of those is a slope. Okay, do we have the slope? Check. Do we have a y-intercept? Check. Then we can write our equation using the following equation, which is that y equals mx plus b. Okay, this shouldn't say max, so let's just cross that out there, and it should be y equals mx plus b, which we know m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Okay, we should all remember that from yesterday. So if you're looking at your graphic organizer, this is the part that we are going to be filling in together today. It is this section. It is with the graphs, all right? There's two of them, okay? We're going to be finding slope. We're going to be finding y-intercept, and once again, we're going to be making an equation. Okay, let's go over some of these things. What I'm going to be talking about today is when we find slope. All right, when we find slope, I'm going to talk about rise over run, and simply that means rise could be going up or down, and the run could be going right or left. All right, so think about the rise once again as the y-axis. How does the line go up or down on the y-axis, and how does the line then run across the x-axis? All right, we already should know that the y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-intercept, which once again is that vertical axis going up and down in our graph, right? And once we have those two things, we can then make an equation. So once again, following along with me as I'm going over this, and we will be going in and filling some of these things in together. All right, guys, the first thing that we're going to be going over is the first graph on your graphic organizer, and it should look something like this. Now, when we are looking at a graph, there are things that we want to find, and those things should be called pretty points. All right, we want to find two pretty points. Well, what does that mean? What is a pretty point? Well, a pretty point is a point on the graph that you can see where it lines up perfectly, all right, as a point on the graph on both lines. So it intersects both lines, and you can see where it matches perfectly. In this graph, what's nice though is that there are two pretty points right here. In fact, all five of them are pretty points, but we're going to use these two to help us find the slope. Now, once again, I just told you that the slope is rise over run, okay? And what is our rise? How does the line go up or down the y-axis? Well, if I think about that, it goes down 1, 2, down the y, and it goes over to the right 1, and that would be our run. So once again, this is a fraction that we can simplify, and 2 over 1 simply just is 2. So I found my slope of 2. If I look at this graph and if I look at the line, I can clearly identify where the line intercepts the y-axis. And once again, that y-axis is this vertical line right here. And where does that line intercept? It intercepts right here on this nice little point, which is 0, positive 5, right? And now that I have my slope, I have my y-intercept, I can create an equation which follows our y equals mx plus b formula, which is y equals 2x plus 5. Alright guys, so what we're going to be looking at now is the second graph on your graphic organizer. And what you see here is now you're not given an entire graph. However, you're given one specific coordinate of a graph, or in this case, you're given a graph that shows the price and weight of something. All right, so once again, we can find the slope and the y-intercept of these things, but something that I want to point out is the scale. the scale for the x-axis goes up by 5, and the scale for the y-axis goes up by 100. This is important to realize when trying to figure out the slope of this line. So once again, you're given two nice points here. It's one here and one here. And we already know that slope is simply just rise over run. Rise, how does it go up or down? Run, how does it go left or right? Once again, keeping that scale in mind when figuring out our slope here. So if we look at this, we can see that we have to go up 2 points. Well, 2 points on this graph goes up from 200 to 300. So that is a change in 100. And if we go over to the right, we're also going over 2, which is a change in 5 if we look at our scale on the x-axis. 100 over 5 is simply just 20. And that is our slope for this line. Now let's think here. If our graph starts at 0, which I'm going to mark down right here, do we have a y-intercept? Okay, do we have a y-intercept if the graph starts at 0? Well, the y-intercept would just simply be 0, 0. All right? When the y-intercept is 0, you don't have to necessarily put it in your equation, but for this, just to show you, I can say that y equals 20x plus 0, or I can simply just say that y equals 20x. At this point in the video, you should be pausing the video so you can get up and get the worksheet so that we can go over one problem together. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go over this problem together on your worksheet. It is number 7. I promise you that you will be doing the rest at some other point in this class period, but I just wanted to go over one of them together on video so that you can look at it as needed. So once again, 2 things that we have to find here, ladies and gentlemen. 2 things is the slope and the y-intercept. Those are the 2 things that we need in order to make an equation. Okay, once again, our slope here being rise over run. You're going to hear me say that way too many times in the next couple of days. But slope is rise over run, and we are given 2 nice points here. We are given this point and this point. So let's figure out our rise. How does it go up and down over the y-axis? And it goes up 1, 2, 3, 4. And it has to go over to the left 1, 2. And since it went to the left, this is -2. Okay? Meaning that our slope is going to be, in fact, negative, ladies and gentlemen, which means that 4 over -2 is -2, and that is our slope here. If we keep going with this, we now have to find the y-intercept. Well, the y-intercept is all the way down here. Okay, it's all the way down here, because think, we have to figure out where does the line cross that y-axis. Well, if we count down, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -5, 0, -5. All right. So our y-intercept, once again, is 0, -5, which is simply just -5 as our y. And now I can make an equation here saying that y equals -2x minus 5. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, is your answer for number 7.